So what I did is I I took some games from Jasugi, from the candidate stage of the Crazy House World Championship, and I'm gonna give some comments on them, and then also afterwards I will um, make this study private, and I've made some puzzles here in the end for you to try on your own. So I will share the link then in the chat, and maybe you can try to solve those puzzles yourself. Let me change the title. Okay, so let's go. So I picked a game from every candidate match Jasugi played. Oh yeah, this is for myself. See analysis on stream, and hope to see you during the finals. So his first match, Jasugi had to play versus Art of Deception, and Art of Deception very well prepared in a couple of lines, and one of his pet lines is this, as we see here, is the immediate d4. He likes to play this most of the times I think in the e4 e5 games, and then he avoids all the theory with bishop c4 and just plays this system. And Jasugi just develops normally, plays his knight to f6 and knight c6, and he plays pawn at d4, which is not the best move, but it's immediately challenging the knight and saying, okay, let's go Art. Let's make this very interesting. And Art does. He trades, takes on f7 and plays bishop c4, and immediately tries to go after the king. And this was actually played 3 or 4 times, this opening variation, in the match between Jasugi and Art. And I'm not sure if Jasugi knew this, but I'm pretty sure he didn't, all the way through at least, and just played from memory, and maybe Art had prepared even this move at f5. And it looks very scary. You get to take here, the knight can drop on g5, but Jasugi defended this very well, and that's why I chose this game, to show you from his match versus Art of Deception. And if you, I'm not gonna analyze with the computer, I'm just gonna comment from my own. If you go here, for example, it looks very weird, this king on d8, but actually white has no time to attack. And if you try to go after this, white can already take over the attack. And if you just take the pawn to get that out of the way, white tries knight at e5, and he gets he solidifies his position. And you can just take the queen like this, and if you take here, white can, or black I mean, can try to attack the queen with, let's say, a move like pawn at d7, and he should be completely fine. So Jasugi going in this position multiple times and defending his king. Okay, so moving on in the game. Here we see again the knight on e5 defending and attacking as well later on. Art of Deception. By the way, if you hadn't noticed yet, you can look at the clock times here in the game. Art of Deception is fortifying his position, and here is a very nice move played by Jasugi. Pawn at b2. The purpose of this move is to get rid of this defender, and it's not so easy yeah, you cannot really do anything about this. If you just move the bishop, the rook gets taken. So you have to take, as Art did. And Jasugi just gathered up some pieces and then, well, he's totally safe. Only one pawn left in Art's hand, and now he starts attacking. And here he finishes very nicely. King takes f3, and he plays pawn at h3. And this is a very important concept that I think is nice for you if you struggle in your games with mating patterns. It's not so much about keeping the check; it's cutting the king off. That's most of the time very important. And this is very instructive by Jasugi. The king cannot run back. If the king can run back, probably black is still winning. But now the king is in grave danger. Pawn at g4 is mate in 1. Knight e5 is mate in 1 if black were to move. So this is a very strong move, cutting off the retreat. Okay, so he defends against both mate threats. Jasugi plays bishop d7. Probably because there was some queen takes c6 and pawn at f7 ideas that he was not too happy to allow. And also look at 20 seconds. So he went for this. Aren't checks more important than in normal chess though, Scat Garavox? Well, I think so, because you can usually you can try them for defense and attack at the same time. And in chess, usually when you check and it's not winning in the attack, it gives your opponent an option to get away. And that's actually the same in Crazy House as well. So sometimes it's about the silent killer, but I think in Crazy House in general, you're right. The checks are more important. For example, this move is also designed by Art of Deception. Okay, it's a bit of a last resort, trying something, but he's covering g4 at least. But it doesn't really help, because the queen is now no longer looking at the king. So the knight comes to e5, and the checkmate is on the board. And this is a very nice checkmating pattern. So the point is that, yeah, maybe checks are more important, but the point is still that sometimes you have to look for a way to cut off the king. And if you look here, black has 2 pawns. If he goes here, check, check, and the king goes to g1, black stands still very nicely. He has more pieces. At the moment at the board, it's going to take white some time to develop and get his king to safety. But yeah, it's going to take some time for Jasugi to convert this as well. He has to make a couple of good moves here. For example, bishop c5 is still a very strong move, and black is still very much in shape in the driver's seat here. But a move like this is just killing. It's a perfect mate indeed. Look at the pawn. It's going here on move 25, and 5 moves later it's still helping with the mate. Okay, first match, Jasugi wins versus Art of Deception, and he beat Art of Deception with 8 games versus 2. Very convincingly. Next up, he gets a variance only. And variance only lost the first couple of games, and afterwards and in the rest of the match tried some offbeat openings, but also lost those games. Because Jasugi is just a very versatile player, both defensive wise and attacking. And this, I think, is a nice example of a very calm game by Jasugi in the opening. This has been popular in in the candidates, either with h6 g6 or h6 g5. And you might recognize this structure. I like to play this with white as well, but here we have it with black. And let's just go through the moves. And here you can see these pieces all around the king. There's not an easy entry. And now Jasugi decides it's time to trade some material, so he goes for c5. And he can maybe use the pawn on e4. He can maybe go knight h5 and try to go after this. But also for white, there's not much going on right now. He's not worse or anything. Look at queen d7, aimed at h3. It's a very and this is invited actually. Bishop e5. Come play bishop e5. He has to go back. And just this one tempo gives Jasugi enough to go on. He thinks, okay, let's go. I'm gonna take h3. Oh, you're gonna put something on g2 to defend? Never mind, I'll take it. And now we get a very nice position where white has a queen, but we see how the queen isn't really useful here. Look, still this very defensive setup, even with the pawn on e7, working towards the defensive well. And he just goes after the light squares until variance only has to give up some material. We get some knight trades. And now Jasugi has picked up some material. White has a lot of material, but he can't put it on the board. He has to keep defending. Knight at d2, aimed at the queen. What's the logical move to make here? Move the queen. Probably it's better to defend the queen and just give it up. So white gives up a queen here, but black has lacks a knight. And as long as you don't put him on the board, the attack may have been stopped here. For example, something like this, and try to defend. But variance only wanted to keep his queen, and Jasugi quickly showed he was going to get the queen anyway. And now he's going after the last defender. And variance only has to keep on playing defensive moves. Queen at h1. Still a lot of pieces in the bank, but he doesn't have time to put them on the board. That's a very important theme here. Jasugi keeps on going. And now he traded enough. He felt he got 2 queens instead of a couple of bishops. And now he goes knight g4. If you take, there's queen at g2 mate. And if you go back, I guess you can play something like queen at g2 still. Threatening mate in the corner. Follow with bishop at f3 and queen at h1. So variance only took the pawn. Queen at f5, the double check is now threatened, and he sacrificed the queen. Because we get a very nice motif that you also get in chess sometimes, where the queen takes away the triangle, and the pieces are blocking the king's retreat. So you cannot take, you have to go back, and now it's not so hard anymore. Making use of the pin here. Okay, he takes here first. Some people would say, okay, you missed mate. You missed a quicker mate, you missed this. But it doesn't really matter. He's winning anyway. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's see, I wanted to start from... Oh no, I wanted to start this game from the top as well. So he goes... we have a very interesting sacrifice here, which is not so easy to see if you're not that experienced in Crazy House. But if you are, you just say, okay, I'm gonna take your piece, you're gonna take my queen, I'm gonna take your piece again. I have now 2 pieces for the queen, and I'm going to show you that those 2 pieces are better than the queen. And this is a very nice demonstration by Jasugi again on how he converts the 2 pieces. Okay, so bishop d3. I'm just going to go back. Queen e2, attacking the pawn. I'm going to make you waste a pawn first. And if you want to go c3, that's fine. Then you have some holes here on the light squares maybe. So king switcher decides to go c3. Bishop d6 back. e5 is now attacked. Watch out, don't take the queen. Knight takes f7. King here. And you're gonna lose. But of course Jasugi spots that, takes the bishop, takes the knight first, takes the bishop, and puts a new bishop on the board. Again, don't play this, because it opens up ideas like this. And now probably white is winning very quickly with, let's say, something like this. Try to use the open square, open file I mean, on the king. So again, very wisely, so going for bishop at d6, queen e2, knight at f4, and now you see the power of the pieces in full force. The queen is just getting trapped slowly. He develops some more. King switcher is trying desperately to get some counterplay, but it's not working. He's even going to lose another queen. And here he almost has to give up. And we get a very fancy queen at c2 checkmate idea. If you take the rook gets taken with check. And well, moving here isn't gonna help you either because of the mate here. So he took, he even went knight before, he didn't bother taking the rook. And checkmate. Again, a very nice performance by Jasugi. Well, this is basically also just aimed at giving you some games from Jasugi from the candidate stage, which made him the challenger for the title versus Upper Wazen. King switcher, I forgot to say, I think he beat variance only 10-0, and versus king switcher he went 9-1. So 3 matches in, he only lost 3 games in total out of 30 games. Beast mode activated. Alright, next he got to play Mugwort, a very strong Crazy House player. When I think he's better with more time, so 3+2 should suit him. The game went e4 d5. We had a Scandinavian, and we had the queen e6, which seems a little weird, a bit little offbeat. And I think it was designed to get Mugwort out of book quickly into unknown territory. And sometimes the idea is that you go queen g6 and you attack the light squares, for example, something like this. You go knight f6 and you try to go for pawn at e4, maybe get bishop f5 in, and the queen is for the moment not in trouble on g6. So therefore queen e2, because now queen g6 is not a problem, because if you play queen g6 now, d4 is just okay. So knight f6 happens, and there was a trade of queens, and Mugwort tried to go after the light squares on the queen side. And now you see the downfall of this idea is that this bishop gets in trouble. And if you've been to this stream before, you know that I always say you get to get this bishop out of the way, and then you can castle, but also king f8 usually is just fine. This bishop is really a problem Most of the times when defending and this bishop is on f8, you can have a hard time. So let's see if Mugwort gets chances here. Jasugi decides to go all in, go after c2, and Mugwort decides to go after a8. So we get knight takes c2, we get rook d8 check in between, and Mugwort just takes the knight. Queen at f5, a nice fork again. We get a blockade, and we get another blockade. Hey Gavity, thanks for following. And already it feels like this was looking very dangerous, but Jasugi just noticed the geometry here with the queen and the knight on c2, and now he's sacrificing his queen for another fork, bishop at d3, and notice that the king has to go here. So the bishop takes the piece or takes the pawn, whatever. He takes it with check. Very well spotted. So he takes here, and well, you can block, but yeah, it's not really gonna help you, I think. So Mugwort decided to move. Thanks for the kind words, Gavity. And now Jasugi just moves back. And it looks a little bit odd to put the bishop here, but he's trying to remove this defender from the back rank. And if you put it here, for example, queen a4 is coming. So I think he was just baiting Mugwort here. He wanted knight at c2, and if the king goes to these squares, he can always play bishop c4 again and pick up the knight. And if the king goes here, knight takes e4 is coming. So it's just working out very nicely. And I picked this game because from this moment on towards move 40 or something, let me check afterwards, it's gonna be checks only. So follow me. And okay, Jasugi did not see this all the way through, but he has a nice intuition, I think, and he felt, I'm gonna find the mate along the way. Bishop c4. The knight is now threatened. Bishop e2, rook d1. You only have queens to block. It's also very instructive here. So you probably won't block somewhere, because if you block with the queen, you lose the queen and then probably the game. So he has to move up. Knight takes e4. The only square to run to is f3. Note that this is covered by the knight. So king f3. Pawn g4. If you take, I can probably take this with check sometimes. I can go h5. So you're going to take the knight. Bishop d5. Note the geometry again. The rook and the bishop are working very nicely together. So the king is now cut off from this file. It cannot go back. So yeah, the question you really want to ask yourself, as Gavity is asking, how are you going to be sure you're mating here? Well, probably he isn't sure, but he's feeling there must be something here. It's going to be mate by assumption, it's sometimes called. Look, the king cannot go back. So the king is out in the open. I have 4 pawns. I have a rook, knight and bishop on the board. I can probably bring this bishop out. It must be mate. So since move 16, we had 6 checks. He's going to keep checking. g5. Get the bishop out. Get the rook in play. So taking on g5 is probably a bad idea. The king tries to run back. But we get another check. If you run back now, pawn at d3 is mate. Soon, you have to sacrifice the bishop here. You have no king moves. Take, you have to go here. And bishop f2. Check, you have to take this pawn. h5. This is going to be mate very quickly. I think I just noticed I missed a quicker mate, but let's just go back. I meant to drop it here, of course. I want to cover the pawn. Something like this, and this is just game over very quickly. Jasugi will find this for sure. So not king f2. The king has to take the pawn. Try to be aggressive. h5 played. King takes g5. The bishop finally gets into the game. King h4. Another pawn. We're gonna activate the rook. And here there was a very funny idea. King g5. Bishop f6. King takes f4. At e5. Not pawn e5, because then you can run up and take the bishop. King g3. Knight e3, same will result in the same line as I showed. I'm going to show rook h4, king f5, bishop e6, king e4, bishop d5, king f5, and I let the computer run for a while, and it says this is the best option for black. And it's understandable. White has two queens, a knight, and couple of pawns. Mate is coming if you don't mate yourself. So Jasugi slipped up here somewhere. I'm not gonna show every checkmating line, but this was a very nice variation I thought I'd share with you. I'm gonna share the study afterwards, so then you can just analyze all you want. But at h6 gives Jasugi again another pawn, and now he finds finally the way to go. He has the rook and bishop in the nice position, and he's dropping the pawns, and he finds mate. Very nice game by Jasugi. 39 moves, it's checkmate, and the checking started at move 16. And if it was a forced mate in 23, I'll let you find out for yourself. Okay, let's. Markward was, by the way, beaten by Jasugi 8 versus 2. So Jasugi lost 2 points versus Markward, and is now, after 4 matches, he only lost 5 games. And now he got to play the finisher. And the finisher, as we know, and as we said, we have battled the finisher many times on this channel. He is a very strong player, and knowing him, he prepared for these games. So Jasugi had to be on the lookout for finisher theory. But again, he played a very nice match, and strategically wise, he match strategy. I mean, he played brilliantly. He played queen f6 here, and d6, bishop e7, knight f6, bishop c5. All moves have been played a lot of times, but queen f6 has been played very few times, and it must have caught the finisher off guard. And it's a bad move, objectively speaking, but Jasugi very much aware of the probable preparation and going queen f6. I really like that decision. So knight c3, knight e7, the finisher going after c7 seems reasonable. Get the king to d8, and Jasugi just plays very slowly here. He realized he knows he's played an offbeat opening. I cannot go for the center immediately, try to do stuff like this. The finisher will crush me, so I'm gonna play safe. Kick the knight back. If you want to sack now, that's fine. There's low threats for the moment, so probably he will go back, and he does. Now d6, another slow move, trying to develop. The knight jumps into d5, knight takes, knight e7, and he tries to attack. And he just runs the queen back to h7, where it's free from attack, and now the finisher has to come up with a plan. And look at this clock, he already spent half his time. So Jasugi's strategy worked here. And now he's coming c3 to control d4. But there we go. Jasugi g5, knight f3, g4, knight h4, f5, knight g3, f4. Just pushing the pawn. White has no material in hand. The knight can be dropped if he wants to, but it's not necessary now. He's just pushing the pawns, and maybe f4 later, maybe take the knight if he wants to. Very nicely played here. Very creative play. I think the finisher decides correctly to not bother with this, because if he gets the open file, he's probably happy. He can drop a pawn here, he can maybe drop a knight here later. So okay, if you want to take, that's fine. Jasugi is not taking, he's just developing further. Drops his queen back, no need to sacrifice it. And now we get some trades on e7. And with the queen on the g file, he tries to open up the king. If you take here, like this, and then this is going to be devastating. A pawn can drop on g3, the bishop can go here. This won't be fun to play. So king h1 seems logical. So he switches up. He wants to go here. We have bishop at f5, f3 anyway. He sacrifices the piece, but now f5 is no longer guarded. So Jasugi just scoops up f5. The queen gets attacked. I don't care. I'm gonna mate you. And I think, let's see if he calculated it. He took 3 seconds on this move. And because he just seen these types of positions before, he knows it's going to be mate. And probably it is. So knight f4, the finisher tries to run, but Jasugi saw the key move beforehand, I think. That's knight c4, covering the king's retreat again. An important theme in checkmating here, and checking as well. So that's Jasugi winning another match. He beat the finisher as well with 8 versus 2. And then he got to play GSVC. Strong chess player, and also a very strong Crazy House player. And GSVC played with the black pieces here. And we get the queen e2. And this is a very tricky line. I've played this versus Bugzilla in my World Championship match this year. He likes to play this as well, with the queen e2, trade on d5 and queen e2. And I don't really remember what the move is. I think pawn at d4 is also fine. Bishop at e6 basically gives up piece. But black tries to say, okay, I'll give up the piece, but I'll get some development back. But Jasugi quickly goes after the knights. Again, the light squares are weak. He gets a pawn, queen g5, try to get active. Just f3. If you take, I get a free development, and also I get threats here. So knight d4 is coming, and here we get a queen trade. And actually, if you let the computer look at this, I think it's gonna say that black has some advantage. But practically speaking, it looks very nice for white. Bishops on the king, knight on the king. The king is a bit open, but well, only a knight and a king. What you gonna do? So queen at d5. Maybe he wants to sack here. Queen at b6, defending and attacking. And it's not maybe, he wants to sack here. If you play a random move, sacrifice. If you take, there's this pawn at f7. You cannot go here, so you have to take knight e5. You can only go here or here, and either way, it's bishop at f7. So that was a very strong queen sacrifice in the position on a bishop that's guarded twice, you think, but you forgot about the pin. So queen at b6 was not only looking at f2, it's also defending. Knight at d4, attacking again and defending by blockading. A very nice multi-purpose move. And now he gets in. He sacrifices a bishop on d7. He plays a pawn on c6. And if you take it, try to trade queens somehow, like this. And the white attack is still going on very strongly. And white is just winning here. Let's say king here, something like this. And white just wins. And there are other variations possible, but this is just completely winning. And actually this is also completely winning. He takes a couple of pieces, he plays bishop at c8. Knight takes c6 is coming, and with the two knights and the bishop, the black king is not going to be in danger. So GSVC not made it in this game, but he decided to just give up and resign the game. Okay, GSVC in total also only took 2 games, I believe. Yeah, he also won 2 in the series. So another A2 for Jasugi, who has now won 6 of his matches and never lost more than 2 games. So he gets the next opponent, International Master Bugzilla. Also remembered as the guy who took my candidate spot by beating me. Fair and square, by the way. And we get a very theoretical position, actually. So versus the finisher, and also before we saw some positions where he just went off book and he tried something new. He also shows he's very well equipped in the theoretical lines. Knight e2 is a very versatile move. You want to play f3 someday. Move your knight here. Prevent bishop g4. So e6 is played. Castles bishop d7. And now he says, okay, if the bishop goes back, it's done its job here. I'm moving the bishop back. And black is also threatening moves like knight takes e. Whoa, sorry about this, wrong errors. Knight takes e5. And this is also a classic theme in chess. It sometimes works in Crazy House as well. So let's say random move. Knight takes e5. And the knight goes back. And you just won a pawn. So the bishop goes back. It's done its task. Retreating moves. Sometimes very hard to find. And Bugzilla decides to go after it. But then Jasugi decides, okay, if you take the bishop, I get a nice pawn. It's covering the e4 square. And there won't be any piece landing on e4 anytime soon. So he just develops his knights. He's ready to trade some pieces. We get some trades. And Jasugi has a very nice center. Both players have developed one piece. And the white king has castled already. So out of the opening, a very calm opening and a very solid position for white. So black tries to attack. And white just counters with an attack on his own and also defends. Bishop c6 feels a bit slow, but one of the ideas in these types of structures is usually that your king gets stuck here. The bishop has to stay here in these structures to defend g7. So what you want to do is create an escape route. You want to go bishop c6 someday or bishop b5 and go to d7 and c8. Sometimes you also develop the bishop out of the pawn chain. The bishop goes to f5 or g4, then d7 is also available. And usually the king is very safe here on d7. The bishop is covering the knight checking square on c5. This pawn is covering c6. There sometimes is even a bishop on c6. So the king is very safe on d7. So therefore bishop c6 is a very logical move. But Jasugi goes on. He noticed this is on, and he also noticed a very strong idea. Knight takes c6, because you just stop defending here. And how are you going to defend this? You're going to play queen d7, then you drop your bishop. So Boxilla has to go back. Rook b1 included, and rook b8. And you could say, well, there's probably a very strong continuation here. I'm going to force knight takes g7, I don't know. But when you're not sure and you don't see anything concrete, a move like rook b1 is always nice, because the most likely response is going to be rook b8. And this position is always better than for white than this one. Because if you need a pawn, you can grab a pawn. If you need a pawn in the attack, you can grab the pawn on b7. So very subtle play, and Jasugi still says, okay, I don't see any forcing way through. I'm just going to improve my position. I'm going to get my king to h1, and well, let me show you what you got. And maybe I'm going to play rook g1, develop the bishop, maybe put this rook even here, and get a very safe king. And you just don't have any plans, I feel. So Jasugi, just a very calm, safe game. Nothing like the games you saw before. And Boxilla finally caves to the pressure. He plays h6, and that creates weaknesses around the king. And Jasugi decides, okay, now it's time. I'm gonna go after those weaknesses. Rook h7, played to defend, just takes. Repeat with the knight. And I'm gonna drop a pawn here. I'm maybe gonna promote soon. I'm gonna play bishop at h7, take the rook, and then promote. Looking very, very tough to defend this. So he wants to take. Now we get bishop takes g5, and then bishop landing on f6. Okay, he didn't take, sorry. Bishop at e7. Repeat. The queen goes to a3, but you already feel that this is not going to be good. Okay, I'm attacking 2 pawns. Wow, that's good for you, but I'm attacking your king. Finally, we get bishop at h7, attacking the rook. Taking the rook, because the rook on the back rank is going to be good. We win the queen, and we take some material. Because now we are just threatening pawn at d7 and queen at f8. How are you going to defend? Even now, pawn at d7. Boxilla resigned, but just to show why he resigned. Mate was going to happen. Very, very instructive game, and I really liked the way he played this game. Boxilla tried for bishop c6 here. He went queen g4, defending and attacking, and bishop d7 was played back, and now he just played two very calm moves, rook b1 and king h1. And only after h6 he decided, okay, now it's time to go for the attack. It's commenting on this is very very easy. You have to find these ideas yourself, of course, but hopefully it gives some insights in how the best players play this game. Okay, Boxilla was the first one to go over 2. He scored 2.5 versus Jasugi. So Jasugi won 7.5 versus 2.5. There was a draw where Boxilla may have had more, but he decided to go for the draw. Next match is versus Juanet. I also took a game where Jasugi was white here. Sort of the same style we see from Jasugi with white. A very calm d4 game. And d4 is generally considered to be a calmer opening than e4. Tactically speaking, you still can make some mistakes in the opening, but usually it gets crazier after a couple of more moves than in the e4 openings. Okay, so Juanet here, trying to go after c3 very quickly. Just a knight e2 again, so I have f3 ideas later. Knight at b2, trying to trade some pieces, and this implicates a queen sacrifice. But again, it's a queen sacrifice for 2 pieces, and in Crazy House it's not actually a sacrifice then anymore. Sometimes even we can say the pieces are worth more, as we saw in the game versus King Switcher. So it's all about what you do with the pieces. So knight c6 played and bishop at a3, covering b2 and preventing castling. So next I can go knight h5 and go after g7, for example. Could be an idea. Bishop d7. There's only a queen in hand, and as soon as you put it on the board, it's gonna be under attack. Yeah, exactly what Upper is saying in the chat. If the queen doesn't have any immediate mating threats, it's usually better to have the pieces. So knight at b5. Okay, I have 4 pieces in hand. I'm gonna use them. Bishop a3, knight at b5. Aimed at c7. Okay, and we take on c7. We're gonna take back the queen. And these pawns are gonna protect my own king. And now we go back. Again with the threat on the queen. And the knights come in. And now we have the queen in the white hand, but white also has a very nice attack, so white can actually use the queen, as we will see very quickly. Knight takes f7, knight d6. Already you could maybe drop it here if you want, but he's saying I'm gonna play a very sane move again first. I'm gonna cover the knight. I'm not going to allow you any running away like this. It's just a sample line. I'm not going to allow this. I'm just gonna create a check and win your queen somehow, because the mating threat is now queen f7, and there's also all kinds of checks happening. So bishop at c5, very nice move. Indeed, we get knight takes b7 and we win the queen here. And now there's 2 queens for Jasugi, and he just starts to gain material. Note that the threat here is to go queen at f8, promote to mate. So he wins another rook. He goes for another rook. Queen at f8 is again coming. So now he wins the knight, and now you can drop a knight here maybe. So Juanet tries to counter. He thinks he has enough material now, but he lacks a rook. He needs a rook here for e1. He tries pawn at d3, but now it's all over. Look at the material in Jasugi's hands. Mating here shouldn't be too hard, and he shows indeed it isn't. And Juanet decided to resign before seeing something like this happen. Just a sample line. Okay, after the 7.5, 2.5 versus Boxilla, Jasugi decided, okay, let's make a statement again. Juanet didn't win a single game. 10-0. Jasugi just went 10-0 versus Juanet again. He already 10-0'd variance only, but now he thought, let's do it again. We're gonna beat Juanet 10-0 as well. And these are some of the best Crazy House plays around. Juanet has been 24, 25, 2600, whatever, forever. I can't remember him being lower than that actually. Variance only, very strong player as well. So that's just great. Yeah, I'm gonna when I put this on YouTube, I'm gonna link to OKE stuff for sure. Oper, he has done some very strong analysis like this as well. But I thought when I'm going to commentate next week together with Jan and Markwart and Jasugi99. Yes, the real GM. Yes, sir. So I thought let's analyze some games for Jasugi from Jasugi and um, give some insight in his games before we start playing next week versus Upper Wazen. And it's good, it's good preparation for you maybe as well. You get to see some of his play. Okay, Master 10. Next up. Again with white d4. Jasugi plays lots of d4. With white, knight c3, d6, e4, e6, and this is a very slow setup. But it can be good if white doesn't push in the center quick enough. Black will try to go like bishop e7, e5, bishop g4. That's basically the point. Who do I want to win? Well, who do I want to win? I think both are very nice. Of course, whoever wins, there's going to be a great winner. Upper Wazen is a good winner. Jasugi will be a good winner as well. I don't know for sure who's the favorite. We'll probably talk about that on the commenting stream for sure. But I'm leaning towards Jasugi to be the favorite a bit. Opera is of course also leaning towards Jasugi, as you just noticed in the chat. Probably because he really thinks so, and also it's of course good to put yourself in the underdog position. So that's gonna be a tough choice. But if you put a gun to my head and say you have to choose, I'm gonna choose for Upper Wazen as my fellow Dutchman and keep the title here in the Netherlands. But it's gonna be close. It's Jasugi might be the favorite, but it would be nice if the Netherlands keeps this title. Okay, but even if Jasugi wins as well, it's gonna be a very great finals for sure. Okay, just a little sidestep there from the game. Let's go back. I was just trying to explain that white needs to break in the center quickly before black gets castles e5, bishop g4 ideas. So he breaks immediately with d5 takes. Thanks for following Backlish Han Kuliev, and blocks with the queen and goes queen b5. Now that the e-file is closed, the queen is actually a bit in the way here, and it's already very hard to block. If you block here, for example, a very awkward position, something like this, and white has a very nice play. Okay, so Master 10 tries to be cheeky with king d8. Maybe knight at d6 is his idea. But pawn at a6 played, trying to go here, undermine the c6 square as well. Knight at c6, of course, now is a fork with the king on d8. So we get takes, we get bishop d7, and Jasugi just decides, okay, I'm gonna give up the queen. If you take with the knight, I have this, and takes, and rook at c8. I can even take the queen. Very strong, so he decides to take with the queen. Same thing happening on b8, so Master 10 felt the need to give up his queen again, but now we have the queen coming to c8 in a lot of scenarios. We can try pawn at d7 and queen e8, or even then queen c8 again. So just a very nice position for white already out of the opening. He started with d4, but was played e4 very quickly and shows he's also very capable of playing the openings after e4 with the slower system here as an example. Bishop g5, rook d1 ideas if needed, but he just felt it wasn't needed and decides to give up the queen. If you take with the rook, there's probably knight at b7, stuff like this. Whoa, sorry about that. Something like this will be made. And it's a very cute mate again. The knight is covering all the squares and the bishop is covering the knight. So he took with the king, didn't really help. Pawn at d7, knight at b7. He had to give up a rook. Look at this, still very safe. Bishop takes d2 if you ever drop a pawn there. And queening is coming, rook at c8 is coming. He develops some pieces. Finally, rook at c8 played. He takes some more pieces. He plays rook d8. It's a very nice check. If you take the rook, I promote the check to the queen with check. So Master 10 tries to run away. Only has 9 seconds left, by the way. So don't be too judgmental. And now with the rook on d2 and the bishop on d2, there's no longer really a problem on d2. Master 10 tries to go for something. Could have played better maybe here, but look at his time. 4 seconds left. Knight at g5, queen is hanging. Jasugi is very practical here. He sacrifices the queen so he can take the queen with check, which is usually a good idea when you are attacking. Try to take pieces with check so you get more pieces to attack with. Pawn at c5, pin the knight, win the knight. Now you get another knight, you can use it in your mating attack. Knight at e7. And okay, Master 10 has a lot of material in hand, but his king has just made it here. There were a couple of more moves played. Jasugi probably slipped here, queen at c7. Didn't really matter. Or queen at d7. Master 10 lost. And after the 10-0 versus Shuanet, Jasugi already also took 10-0 versus Master 10. Again, a very strong Crazy House player. Got 10 out just like that. Of course, Master 10 had chances in the game, but 10-0 is very, very strong. Okay, so 2 more matches to go for Jasugi. The one versus Penguin GIM, and I chose this game because it's a very nice example of how to play versus the queenside fianchetto bishop. Jasugi decides to go protective versus the e-pawn and tries to close the diagonal. That's a very important theme usually in these structures with the bishop on either b2. Whoa, sorry about this. Either on b2 or b7, you want to close the diagonal. And it's very nicely fortified. And now he starts to go after the pawn. g6 is played. And now you really want a pawn here, but you don't have one. So Jasugi just decides, I'm gonna sack. If you take, probably he would have sacrificed here as well. Something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if he would have played something like this. Don't know if it's best, but looks very interesting. Instead, Penguin decided to defend the g7 square, and Jasugi just went ahead and developed some more. Penguin GIM, very creative play here. And this move is a bit mysterious maybe. What you normal humans like me would like to play here, something like this, push e5 and whatever. But Jasugi just says, okay, what is white's black's counter threat? This is gonna happen anyway soon. I'm first gonna play f3, not allowing any knight at g4 ever. He's 2 knights in hands. And the queen then comes to h4 and stuff happens on h2. Just f3, covering important squares. How is he gonna stop bishop at g5? He cannot really stop bishop at g5. Only with knight at h7, but then anyway bishop at h5 or just bishop at h6 check. Something like this. And maybe push. So very nice, just slow, first f3, don't allow any counterplay, and h4 is played, and now we start attacking. But before Penguin gets harassed with e5, he tries to get creative himself. Queen f2 is played, we get a couple of repetitions, and here knight at h3 to block off the file. g1 is covered, f2 is covered, white is totally fine, rook h5 was played. He tries to just grab the pawn. And here white has one more defensive thing to do, and that's block off the h file and cover the knight. Pawn at h4, and now he can take over the attack, and just like that he has defended, the rook has gone back, and knight at f5, and it's just mate very soon. If you go up, rook g7 is mate after okay, I don't know if this is the fastest, but this is just mate very quickly. If you go here, we have rook g7, and he has to go back. Note the bishop here. And now that we have taken the pawn, we can go knight e6 mate. And the last one was here. You just promote to a queen. He cannot go to h7, but even then rook at h8 is mate, but he just has to go back, and rook at h8 is mate. So he just defended, he played f3, it was calm, and he just pushed back, and after rook h8, bam, lights out, knight at f5, checkmated. Let me check, he also went a2 versus Penguin, I feel. Yeah, he did. Sorry about that. So last opponent, Chicken Crossroads, who did very well in the candidates. By the way, I think he came second in the end. But Jasugi with the big scores, 8-2 all day long. Chicken Crossroads could not keep up with him, so Jasugi already winning at this stage. But still a very nice match, of course, to watch. And I picked a game with a move. Jasugi also likes to play on move 1, just a6, just avoid any bishop b5 nonsense in a lot of lines. And we get a play where we try to go at the f7 square very quickly. And already we get a sacrifice. And this feels unsound, but Jasugi is making it work. At e4 played, bishop at d5, knight at d3, and this looked brilliant because I think bishop takes e6 is really good. If you go up, this must be made. Bishop at c4 and rook at e3. Oh, I mean rook at f4, sorry. And if you go back, we have this nice pin here. So you can now just win the queen with mate to follow as well, I think. And if here, I don't really remember what it was again. Probably something like this. and knight at c6, forcing the king here, and now you get to take the king. The queen would check, has to go back. You go here, and you play something like this. Not entirely sure, I didn't check it, but I felt bishop takes c6 was a very nice move here. But instead, he just castled and still said, okay, you only have a queen, I have a couple of pieces, just castling, I'm gonna mate you later. Probably if he saw bishop takes c2, he would have gone for it. This is what makes chicken so good. He tries to go for counterplay immediately, queen h5. But it's not enough. Jasugi is coming with the promotion and mating him on c4. And again, a very nice game by Jasugi, winning in 21 moves versus Chicken Crossroads. Strong play. So that's what I wanted to do for you. Make a study on some games of Jasugi. Just do something else than playing before next week's final starts. For now, I'll show you what I did. I made some puzzles as well. I think 9 in total. And you can play these in an interactive mode. I'll do the preview. And I'll share the link in the chat. Let's make it public first. Like this. And then I'm gonna share the link in the chat soon. But let's just first do the first puzzle. These are all games by Jasugi as well, and I found some checkmates. And you can go. I don't know if you know studies on Lichess. You can make these in interactive lessons, and I made some comments this as well. Like bishop e6 would have covered the back rank, so that's sort of a hint. He didn't cover the back rank. He played pawn at d4. Or some other, I think pawn d4. At least he didn't play bishop e6, so now the back rank is weak. So the best move is bishop queen e8, take the rook, and now mate in 1. And so you can move on to another couple of mates. Go check them out. Let me post a link now. And okay, also the games and the games are still there, of course, so you can check the games as well. And maybe you are better than Jasugi if you go to number 20. We'll see. I'm gonna leave it here. Check out the games if you want to. Check out the puzzles if you want to. And I hope you enjoyed this. Something else than playing. We're gonna have some more streams this week, I'm sure, because we in the Netherlands we just got locked down, so probably lots more times to stream, which is good news for you guys, for the Crazy House followers. Thanks for following, to all of you, and specifically to Bullets I call, don't know, and Moments Balance in the last couple of minutes. Thanks very much. So next week Tuesday, first part of the finals with Jan Lee, Markward and Jesse Sirawan. Hope to see you there, but probably I will stream more this week, but I'm just not sure when, so I cannot tell you right now, but probably around the daily Crazy House time, so 9 p.m. Central European. See you next time. Have a very good day wherever you are.